This YouTuber killed his entire family. I'm not even joking, I get a comment or a DM nearly every single day asking me to cover this case. This is the case of Trey Sessler, or Mr. Anime. Trey Sessler had a seemingly normal childhood and seemed like any other normal guy, that is until he turned 13. For whatever reason, 13-year-old Trey wanted to shoot and kill one of his friends. But he didn't have a weapon, so his plan was to falsely call 911 and then try and steal a weapon off of a police officer. His plan failed, and Trey was ordered to get a psychiatric assessment. I could not find any documented diagnosis that Trey Sessler might have, but at the time of our case, he was taking medicine for anxiety and bipolar disorder. In 2006, YouTube was the next big thing, and 17-year-old Trey started his own YouTube channel. He first started uploading comedy skits and sketches, but a lot of his sketches involved violence and weapons. Eventually, Trey would be known on YouTube and online as Mr. Anime and started posting anime reviews and became quite popular in that niche. Trey has been credited with helping kickstart the anime community on YouTube and is also apparently one of the biggest inspirations for a lot of the big names in the anime community today. Trey's videos started out really good and he seemed really level-headed, but along the way there was a switch in Trey and his content. Trey began acting erratic and abusing substances and alcohol. He also got really obsessed with weapons and was having really dark thoughts and fantasies. There was a lot of rural farmland around near where Trey lived, and nearly every single night he would sneak onto these people's farms and shoot and kill their horses and their cows. And he would later say that this was easy for him to do. He also killed his pet kitten and buried it with a note that said, "Please forgive me." Trey's life is spiraling and spiraling into something darker and darker with every passing month. He becomes obsessed with serial killers, mass killings, and school shootings. He was especially obsessed with Columbine. Eventually, Trey wanted to become a killer himself. He thought that maybe he wanted to become a serial killer, but decided against doing that because he said that being a serial killer would give him too much anxiety. So eventually, he started planning to shoot up his old high school. There was going to be this big pep rally at his old high school, and he said he wanted to go there and kill at least 70 people so he could become the biggest mass murderer in history. But according to Trey, as he began planning his attack, he started to think about his family. And Trey decided that he wanted to spare his family the pain of knowing what he was about to do and what a monster he was about to become by killing his entire family. After a night of binge drinking on March 19th, 2012, 22-year-old Trey lured his mom, Rhonda, into the garage and shot and killed her. He later said that he regretted doing this the second he did it, but that he was already committed and it was too late to back out now. So even though he already regretted killing his mom, he still went and shot his brother Mark and his father Lawton. After being initially shot, his brother Mark actually survived and ran and locked himself in the bathroom, but Trey broke himself in and killed his brother anyway. After killing his entire family, Trey trashed the entire house. He then killed all of the family pets, which were 2 birds, 1 ferret, and some fish. He then took a black marker and wrote all over the walls and some of the doors. He wrote things like, "Help me, I love my family, and I will never forgive myself. I don't know why I did this." He did plan to go through with what he had planned to do at his old high school, but luckily he never got the chance and was arrested at his friend's house 3 days later. Trey never tried to hide his crimes. Once he was arrested, he made a full confession. He said he regretted what he did. He showed remorse. He even said that he knew that he was a danger to others and a danger to society. He pled guilty and received life in prison without the possibility of parole. He also blamed the internet for his dark thoughts and fantasies. I'm really interested to hear all your thoughts on this case today, guys. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments. While you're there, please let me know what case you want to see me cover next. Thank you to each and every one of you that suggested I covered this case. Please be a good person to your fellow person. I will see you guys all next time in my next video. She is one of the most evil mothers in all of America. She held her 6 children captive, abused them, and even made her kids kill each other because she was jealous after being rejected by multiple men. Teresa Nora was the youngest in her family. She had a happy, stable childhood until her dad got sick and lost his job. Her mom was under so much stress to keep the family afloat that one day her mom suddenly collapsed and died right in front of Teresa. At only 15 years old, Teresa got her first boyfriend, Clifford Sanders. He was a bit older. He was 21 years old. They moved in together. Teresa dropped out of high school, and within 3 months of meeting, they were married. The relationship was extremely toxic. They were always fighting. At only 18 years old, Teresa got pregnant for the first time, but it did not help the constant fighting. July 4th, 1964 was Teresa's husband's 25th birthday. The entire day, the couple was fighting, and Clifford decided that he had enough and that he was going to leave Teresa. So Teresa decided that her husband would never have another birthday. Teresa grabbed a weapon and shot and killed her husband. She claimed self-defense, and in her trial, even her own family and friends testified against her. But Teresa was found not guilty, probably because she was pregnant at the time. Teresa had her second child. She met a new man, but she cheated on him with his best friend, a man named Robert Knorr. Teresa and Robert got married. They had 3 children in 2 years, but they were also constantly fighting, and there was allegedly abuse on both sides. So while Teresa was pregnant with her 6th child, Robert divorced her. Teresa had a 3rd husband and then a 4th. All of her relationships usually ended with the men leaving her. Teresa had a pretty serious drinking problem. She was also now the single mom of 6 children. The family had no money, and any money they did have, Teresa would spend on booze. So the family of 7 people was sharing a 1-bedroom apartment. And it was always a mess and super gross. Teresa wasn't taking care of the apartment, but she also wasn't taking care of her children or even herself. She really let herself go. And Teresa took everything out on her 6 kids. The abuse was extreme, vile, and wicked, but she was especially hard on her 2 older daughters, Susan and Sheila, probably because they were younger and more beautiful than her. Teresa would also force her children to abuse each other as she watched. Eventually, Teresa wouldn't even let her kids leave the house. She took them out of school. They didn't go to doctors. They didn't have friends. She was also barely feeding them at this time. And like I said, her 2 older daughters, Susan and Sheila, got the worst of it. One day, Susan ran away, and when she was found, she was covered in bruises and burns and cuts. Her teeth were broken from the amount of times that her mom punched her in the face. She told the police officers that her mom was abusing her and her other kids, but when they reached out to Teresa, Teresa said that Susan was crazy, and they believed Teresa. And as punishment, Susan was tied up under the kitchen table for 2 years, barely given food or water. One day, Teresa wanted to momentarily untie Susan. She gave a weapon to her youngest child and told her to shoot her sister Susan if Susan tried to run away. And Susan got shot that day in the back. It was really, really bad. But Teresa, her mom, refused to take her to the hospital. She just tied Susan back up and put her under the kitchen table. And Susan's wound got seriously infected, and she was barely hanging on to life. Then one day, with the help of some of her children, Teresa brought Susan and all of her belongings to the isolated wilderness, poured gasoline on her, and then burned Susan alive. She was only 18 years old. And when Susan's body was discovered, she was a Jane Doe. And with Susan gone, Teresa's abuse shifted to her other daughter, Sheila. She was only 16 years old, but her mom forced her into work to make money for the family. But Sheila was actually secretly pocketing some of the money. She was hoping to save up enough so she could run away. But before she had the chance, Sheila was also tied up by her mother, but instead of being put under the kitchen table, she was put into a teeny tiny cabinet closet thing where she had no bathroom. She wasn't given water, food, or even light. Teresa told her other kids if they helped Sheila, they would be given the same punishment. So without food or water, on June 21st, 1985, Sheila also passed away. And then with their mother's instruction, they didn't open the cabinet for days. They just left her body in there. And remember, this was a 1-bedroom apartment. Eventually, with some of her kids' help, Teresa also dropped Sheila's body off at a hiking trail. And when Sheila was found, she was also a Jane Doe. Years would go by and Teresa would just be living life as normal. At this time, most of her children had either moved out or run away. The only kid that was still living with Teresa was one of her sons named Robert. But then one day, Robert tried to rob a bar, and in the robbery, he actually killed a man and was sentenced to 16 years in prison. Teresa's youngest was a little girl named Terry, and Terry actually ran away when she was a teenager. And remember, she spent her entire life in captivity. She had no friends. So when she actually got to speaking with people and found out that her childhood was not normal, and it was not normal for your mother to kill your sisters. She ended up reaching out to the cold case department in California. She gave them their DNA, and that's how those two Jane Does were identified as her sisters, Sheila and Susan. That was in 1993. Teresa's two sons, Robert and William, that both assisted in helping their mom with the deaths and cover-ups of their two sisters, both made full confessions. They were charged with accessory to murder, but they were given no jail time. Their mother, Teresa Knorr, pled guilty to avoid the death penalty. She was sentenced to life in prison, but will have the opportunity for parole and early release in 2027, which is not that far away. Honestly, I don't think she'll get out. I don't think she'll ever get out, but she is an older woman, and I feel like the parole board is usually kinder on the elderly women. But let me know all your thoughts. Let me know if you've ever heard of this case. If you watched the end, thank you so much for listening to Sheila and Susan's story, and I will see you guys all next time in my next video. This 16-year-old girl opened fire on an elementary school because she hated Mondays. This is Brenda Spencer. Her mom pretty much abandoned her when she was really young, leaving her to be raised by her father. But Brenda's father was an abusive alcoholic. He didn't really work. They didn't have a lot of money. And allegedly, Brenda's father began to essay her when she was only 9 years old. Brenda was a really troubled kid. She got good grades in school, but she kind of acted out in school. She was the bad kid. She was skipping school, using substances. Brenda confided in a teacher at school about the abuse at home and that she was depressed and contemplating unaliving herself. That teacher went to Brenda's father, told him all that, and recommended therapy for Brenda, but Brenda's father said to leave them alone and that his kid was fine. Brenda did attempt to unalive herself multiple times. She would tell her father about this. She begged him to get her some kind of help for her mental health. And this was the 70s, so mental health awareness wasn't really a thing like it is today. Not trying to make excuses for Brenda's father because he is the worst. That Christmas, Brenda was 16 years old. She asked for a radio for Christmas, but instead her father bought her a weapon. He bought his 16-year-old daughter, who was depressed and attempting to unalive herself, a semi-automatic. It seemed like her father got her this as a gift because he wanted her to unalive herself. She began to, after school every single day, hunt and kill small animals, which is something that young killers do. They start out with animals. And at school, Brenda started telling a bunch of people that she was planning something really big that was going to get her on TV. On January 29th, 1979, it was a Monday. It was really early in the morning. Brenda skipped school that day, and across the street from Brenda's house was an elementary school. All the elementary students were outside, lined up in the schoolyard, waiting to enter the school once the bell rang, and 16-year-old Brenda grabbed her brand new semi-automatic, and from her bedroom window from across the street from the elementary school, she began to open fire on the children. Brenda fired a total of 30 shots, which shot and injured 8 children and 1 police officer. She also took the lives of 2 of the elementary school employees that gave up their lives to protect some of the children and get them to safety. Those 2 brave school employees that gave up their lives to protect these children was the principal, Burton Ragg, and a custodian for the school named Mike Shushar. Police had to park a huge truck in front of the school's entrance to block Brenda's attack from across the street. Brenda then barricaded herself in her house for hours while her house was completely surrounded by police officers and SWAT team. A local journalist called called Brenda's house at this time while she's barricaded herself inside and asked her why she did it. And 16-year-old Brenda infamously said that she opened fire on this elementary school because she hated Mondays and it made it more fun. And after over 7 hours, a negotiator was able to convince Brenda to surrender after they promised her that they would give her Burger King. And only a month after this huge tragedy, an Irish rock band ended up putting out a song that was inspired about this tragedy called I Don't Like Mondays, and it ended up going #1 in like 32 countries. They got like a lot of backlash, but they didn't care because they got their bag. And this only further traumatized these poor children and the loved ones and people that lost their lives even more. Brenda pled guilty to 2 counts of murder and was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison, but she was never charged with the 8 attempted murder counts for the 8 children that she shot. And since that, Brenda has been denied parole like 5 or 6 times, and she's been denied mainly because she has never showed remorse until very, very recently. And to be honest, 46 years later, finally showing remorse for what you did is too little, too late. During each of her parole hearings, Brenda would always have a new excuse on why she did what she did. She never actually took like responsibility. The one time she said that she was under the influence at the time, and that's why she shouldn't have been charged with murder. She should have been charged with manslaughter. But when she was arrested, they did give her a toxicology test, and the toxicology report came up that she was completely sober. Another time she said that she was hallucinating, so she didn't actually mean to hurt anyone. She also said that she wasn't actually aiming at anyone. She didn't mean to actually shoot anyone. She just wanted the SWAT team to shoot her and take her life because she wanted to unalive herself, which doesn't make sense because she fired 30 shots and shot 11 people. So that's like over 1/3 of the shots. And that's just like statistically impossible if you're not meaning to actually shoot anyone. Another time, Brenda blamed her terrible childhood and the fact that her father was SAing her. Some people don't believe that her father was SAing her. I 100% believe her, which doesn't excuse her actions at all, but I'm just saying I do believe her because Brenda's father, Wallace, when he was 41 years old, he married Brenda's cellmate when she was in juvie, and that was a 17-year-old girl, 41 and 17, and he ended up getting the 17-year-old girl pregnant. And that's the case of Brenda Spencer. Pretty scary girl. She's still up for parole still, but I don't think she'll ever be released, if I'm just being completely honest. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments. While you're there, please let me know what case you want to see me cover next. And until then, love you guys so much, and I'll see you guys next time.